The time is now 7 p.m. June 24th, 2025, Finance Committee meeting is called to order. Just a reminder that this meeting is being taped for a future broadcast. Do a roll call. John Doherty, excused. Mary Ann Galezzo.
Here.
Chris Diorio.
Here.
Brad Jackson.
Here.
Andy Levine.
Here.
Joe Levino.
Here.
Anthony Nelson. Scott Neville.
Here.
Thank you. So our first agenda item is with Stephanie Frontiera, our Finance Director, and Eric Slagle, our Town Manager, regarding budget transfers.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for having us today. So, not having been kind of a part of this process before, either one of us, Stephanie did some research on kind of how this was handled in the past, and so that's the way we've handled it. So, obviously, we're all kind of fresh to this. So, if the if the Finance Committee wants things done in a different way, just let us know. We'll change it up. But the
It's
two transfers that we're talking about are for the cable access account and for the school choice assessment account.
You're not talking about the public buildings?
Well, I think that I believe we were already talking about that a couple of agenda items down.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's fine. This is a fine format, by the way. It's very clear, and you give detail to support it, so I certainly have no problem with it.
And good evening, everyone. I'm more than happy to discuss these two transfers. The first transfer is the PEG cable access, and that is just regular housekeeping. So what happens is we receive revenue in, and we also pay expenditures. So this is just trying to get the budget whole. So for a little bit more information, this past fiscal year, we budgeted $500,000 for PEG access expenditures. We've expended to date $504,054, and we've received in revenue $506,565. So I am requesting a transfer of $4,055 to make the expenditure whole from what we've currently expended since we budgeted too low. So that's the first one. The second one I'm requesting is the school choice state assessment. And what happens, this is based upon enrollment. There is a formula and the calculation increased on this particular one, so we had a shortfall. So we're paying $24,405 a month. We still have to pay, we currently have a deficit of $61,828, and we still have to pay the June assessment, which will come in at $24,405. And that will get me to the $86,233 that I am requesting for a year-end transfer.
So have you reached the total amount that we had anticipated already? Is that why we're
Yes.
adding the $24,000 to?
Yes, so what we've, for FY25 town meeting appropriated $141,233 for budgetary. We've expended to date $203,051. So we currently have a shortfall of $61,828 plus the additional $24,405 that we're gonna pay will get us to the $86,233.
And is this shortfall due to increased students going there, or is it a change in their allocation per student?
So it's based on enrollment. So there's a special calculation that is done on a monthly basis, and they take 1/12 of each school district's annual school choice charges, and they divide it out to figure out kind of what our assessment will be. So back in December, our assessment increased to the $24,405 for our school choice students.
Okay.
And I believe, let me just look here, last year, just to give the board an idea, we budgeted $500,000 and we ended up spending, oh, sorry about that, wrong file here. Last year, we budgeted only 71,056, and Mike Morris came to the board requesting an additional 40,929.
Okay.
So there was a shortfall there as well. Our total expenditures in FY '24 came in at 158,757, so we definitely have an increase this fiscal year.
Okay.
What's the
But
total?
why is there an increase? Is more students going to other districts, or are the districts charging more per student?
So we have it's based on enrollment, so we have a higher enrollment, but it could also be special education students in that equation as well.
So how many students are in for $156,000? It can't be a lot, right?
Yeah.
Well,
So
school
the regu-
choice is $5,000.
It's
a
5,000,
student.
yeah, per
Oh, that's
Plus-
all it is?
It's all it is. Plus, the receiving district gets to pass through all of their special education costs if the student happens to be on an IEP. So if the student isn't on an IEP, it's just $5,000.
Oh,
But that's what makes it difficult to figure out how many students are.
Which is why you can't.
Or special ed.
There's also a charge of 9,727 for students for the Commonwealth virtual schools. I don't know if this district currently has anyone in that program. I would have to speak to the school business manager on that. I'm still fairly new to know that, but that's part of the equation as well.
Thank you.
You're
okay.
welcome.
So what schools does this cover? This is not the same as charter schools, right?
Correct.
So what schools are students going to?
I don't have a comprehensive list in front of me, but
Okay.
I can
It's other-
certainly get
it's
that.
other public schools.
Other
Yeah, it's
public
just other
schools,
towns.
So
Yeah.
they're going to Tewksbury, Billerica.
if they want to go to Tewksbury or,
Okay.
yeah.
As long as those towns have opted
schools.
into
Yes,
school
Opted into
choice,
opt in for school choice.
which Wilmington
Just for
chose not to.
our general knowledge, like that's a good thing to add
Okay,
if you can,
Sure.
the next time.
absolutely.
Okay.
Could I have, what's the total expenditure you expect in FY '25 again?
So far, let me see.
No, total, once you get the transfer, what will the total be?
That's the two. The total
Two
is
oh-
the
203051?
Yeah, 203, 51,000,
So it's going
plus the
from,
additional 86,000 to 33 that I'm requesting.
It's up 50 grand, so 10 more students.
so, but the total expenditure will be 203, that includes the 86 that
It
you're
does
asking?
not include the 86.
So the total
because we have-
expenditure is gonna be 290,000?
Correct.
So it's
Per
going
our
from 158 in FY '24 to $290,000 in FY '25?
Correct, per our state assessment off of our cherry sheets from DOR.
No, I think, so I
This
think.
is, we have not paid these two bills yet, because I can't legally pay a bill until
Because
we
it's,
transfer it.
it's not paid.
Yeah.
But I think,
So
the-
it doubled?
yeah, so I think the total, I think the actual is gonna be about 227, because I think you just add the 24 that you haven't been billed yet under actual, right?
Well,
So the
this-
24
we
is in the
haven't-
86, right?
yeah,
The
we
24 is
haven't-
in the 86, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I have not paid these invoices yet. I can't until a
But we've paid
reserve-
141.
No, this is the budget. This is what we've paid right here. This is budgetary up top, actual right here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And the actual number one more time? I'm sorry. I'm confused now.
The actual number we spent is the 203.
203, 51,000, and we are due to spend 24,405 for the month of June. We've made 11 payments for our state assessment so far.
So it's closer to 225, not
Correct.
3 something. Okay.
Okay, so we're not adding the 86, excuse me, we're not adding the 86 to 203.
No,
Right.
it's just part of the transfer I need. So we currently have a deficit of 61,828 from our May payment
But we're
and a
still going
portion
from
of our
150 to
April payment,
220.
Okay.
plus the additional 24 for
Okay.
June.
Yeah, so
And-
the budget amount for this
Sorry
account
for the
is.
confusion.
The budget amount for this
Munis.
account is 141.
Yes.
Yeah.
Once you add the 86, the total budget will be
Yes.
126 or
Yeah.
226. So that's going to be the total amount we're expending.
Okay, that's much better.
So,
Okay.
well,
So it went up quite a bit from last year.
so it's
It's
going
still- yeah, it did
from
go up.
158 to 226 in 1 year.
75 grand, yeah.
Yep.
That's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
That's a whole bunch of kids.
It is.
How do we get reporting on the number of students last year, the number of students this year?
We can check with the.
Who does, yeah. I
With
can-
Desi or the
Yeah, I
business.
can, yeah, check with Desi.
I mean, I don't disagree we need to make the transfer, but that's a
Big jump.
that's a cherry sheet expense, right? That-
Yes.
That
It's
comes
on the
right off the
assessment
top,
list.
but before we go out.
Yeah, they take it out of the money they're
Yeah.
supposed to send us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's,
Yeah, I suppose if we could get some kind of data concerning the number of
change year over
students we
year.
had last year, the number of students we have now, and if that tells us, so for instance, you were mentioning that if there's special ed costs in there, I don't know how we would get that information, but we could assume that 5,000 times the number of students that DESE is showing us is the basic costs, and everything
Everything
above
else is
that
bad.
would be special ed costs.
But who audits those special ed costs? Is the state doing that? Is the town that
Yes,
charges?
yeah.
department.
The town, okay, so we feel
Department
comfortable
of
that those are good numbers?
Yeah, Desi.
Yeah, that-
But the costs are just astronomical.
Yep.
So,
I'm more than happy to
Yeah.
provide this to
Yeah.
the board.
If you could, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
and quite frankly, that entire increase could be one special ed kid,
Yeah.
not
It could be somebody with
25
a lot of
kids.
issues,
It could be
yeah.
one.
There are circumstances when a school choice kid goes out of district by the sending district. By the receiving district. Their sped team says, we can't handle this student anymore. They send the student out of district. Now, we're supposed to get a seat at the table at the IEP meeting, but,
Mhm.
and so that would be just a cost, kind of a cost avoidance, because we would have sent the student out of district probably.
Right.
We would have incurred the expense directly, so.
Yeah, it would just be in a different line item in the school department as the school budget as
But-
opposed to in this line item.
It's,
Okay.
But we can certainly get you the backup
Yeah.
data. as
it's
to-
Yes.
it's certainly an
Yeah.
increase that's worthy of further study.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's been trending up over the last
Yeah.
several years.
And it'd be interesting to know if we just have a larger number of students that are selecting to leave Wilmington for another school.
Yeah, it'd be interesting based on the enrollment. It doesn't feel like that's the case because I think
Right.
our enrollment actually ticked up slightly year over year from last year to this.
Well, the middle school and high school does not tick up.
Mm.
It's the elementary level
Yeah.
that ticks up. The middle school and high school fall.
But not year over year. Last year to this year, I don't believe.
Yeah, it was down.
Okay.
Elementary was up.
Yeah, elementary has been,
Yeah, elementary's been very
Been
strong,
coming
but
up,
middle
yeah.
school and high school have ticked down every year over year.
Just out of curiosity, what did we budget for this for FY '26?
So that's an excellent question. I should have been prepared to have the answer for.
I have the answer. So for FY '26, we actually budgeted $135,162, which was
So we got a
lower
problem.
than FY '25.
We got a big problem.
so that was
Ready.
based
Well,
on
these-
what the state told us.
Yeah, these are cherry sheet numbers. So
These
our
are
budget
cherry
is
sheet based upon
Yeah.
the cherry
we
sheet
are given that
assessment,
we're
yeah.
given that number from
Right.
the state. And they're
So
basing
some
it
of these
on-
children might be aging out of the
Exactly, you
schools.
could, yeah,
Yeah.
that is true.
Unfortunately, it's not something that's ever clear to me about where they're getting that number because I don't know that we were going to deep dive into the
From
background.
the claims.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that.
it's-
It's
Yeah. It's an interesting calculation.
So they give us the number that we budget, and then they give us the number that it comes in at.
yeah. Well, I think that number is correct generally for the first 6 months, and then in December when they recalculate from the new enrollment,
Yeah.
they. So basically,
So it's wrong, they just keep
it's
it wrong
last
for the
year's
first
number.
6 months, and
And
then,
they'll-
Yeah.
yeah. Wow,
Okay.
we approve it, but it's just an
a
interesting
little more.
conversation.
A little more investigation and get some more data on how this is working.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions or comments regarding these two transfers? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have, okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? And it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you need this signed?
I added on the other, I'm gonna wait just in case to see what happens.
Okay.
I did it all together.
Okay.
Next time I'll do them separately.
Okay,
It's kind of copying how Brian used to present it, just so everything is in the same format.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
So, when
just
will
gonna
you
let-
have these separated then? When, all right, so are you leaving?
No, I'm just gonna let,
Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna let him come up. I'm gonna still be
Okay.
here, don't
Dennis got
worry.
up and talk about roofs.
Not that I'm not
I don't wanna talk
nearby.
about roofs unless you want me to.
Always close by,
We
you
have
know.
one thing before the roof, but
I was on them today, it was very hot.
Okay, so shall we jump to the roof? Is everybody okay with that? As
Whatever works
opposed,
for you guys.
as
I'm
opposed
here
to
all day.
jumping off the roof?
just generate off.
Yeah. All right, welcome Dennis Kelly. How are you today?
Good, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Unfortunately, I'm back.
We forecast this. This is not unexpected.
Nope, thank God. So we ran into a problem this winter at the Wilmington Street School. It's a building that we all know is part of the new proposed school. And so the roof sections are getting older and we end up with a leak. During that 2-month period of freezing cold and rain and then snow, and then the roof started to crack and seams started to break and it started to rain in the building. I supplied some pictures, not just a few of the pictures, to give you an idea of what was going on. Did create a little chaos in the schools. They work with us, and I promised them we'd find a way to resolve it, but there was, until the snow stopped, I couldn't do much. So it was about a 2-month period before I could really get it under control. We would just, you saw the rain catches and everything inside the ceilings. We were going into barrels with those, so there were quite a few leaks. Once we were able to get in there, we did some patching to get us through the rest of the winter. And during that time, we started evaluating what had gone on. And it's a tar and gravel roof, and you can see like tar and gravel on the bottom of this sample here. So underneath the gravel, it started cracking, splitting. So they had to move all the gravel, find the seams where it was leaking, and try to identify a way to repair them. A couple of pictures, you can see some extensive repairing going on. So then after that, we had an infrared scan done once we got some good weather. And what you see in the pink on the handout is, that's the wet area.
The whole roof.
So 70% of the roof is wet. So once you get the moisture in, this is a kind of a cutout of what's underneath the roof. You have like a foam board, and then this sample here becomes a giant sponge. It collects the water. There's no way to get it out of there. Basically, every time we walk on it, every time snow load gets on it, it squeezes out, a little drips through and finds cracks and weighs out. So historically, if we had time, we would have designed this roof and went to today's code, built up the insulation thicker and met all those codes. We don't have that kind of time. I have enough time to come up with a different solution. That's where this BUR built-up roofing comes in. It's a 3-layer roofing. They remove as much rock as they can. They then come in with 3 different layers to seal the roof, and that will get us hopefully until we get to a new school and a little after that. And then if the school failed in the 5-year capital plan, we're going after windows, boilers, roofs, everything in that school. If the school passes, we need to get to 2028 and then determine what we're doing. So the best solution for this is this built-up roofing system. So we went out to bid. I believe I got 6 bids, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bids, and ranging from the reason there's a big jump there is the company that came in at the 154 had done 2 of these roofs this year and have a bunch of leftover supply. So they were like, well, this is a great opportunity for us to go in. They've done work for us on some of the school roofs in the past. We have had great results with them, so feel confident in them. But they wanted to use up their supply and at the same time job. So we actually benefited from their loss, we'll call it.
Sort of discount on, they're bringing their own supply
They always
plus
bring it's all but
more.
they knew they'd be sitting on that. So he was like, I'm going to be aggressive on it. And he did say that I've done work for Wilmington, so I'm going to be aggressive when we did the tours with all these roofing companies.
Okay.
We actually had 40 people pull paperwork on it and only got 5 bids. The roofing's slow out there too, and that helps with a little competitive. Most of the roofers are trying to find work for the summer for their crews.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that's a benefit there. So the new roofing system would be putting some venting across the roof as well. That venting's going to help wick the moisture out of these boards and the insulation and help dry things out and help it breathe going forward. So that is the plan, that's the unfortunate case. So it's section, the gym section's pretty new, and then the rest of it's not as old, but we're running into problems, and that's why coming out of this vote, we'll need to determine what we want to do for that building if the vote fails on the school.
How old's the roof?
1990,
More than
That
25 years.
was replaced in 2003?
2003.
2003, yeah,
22 years.
so.
So.
And again, tar and gravel, we don't do a lot of tar and gravel anymore. We do a lot more of EPDM, and so when we're doing re-roofs, we'll either do modified bitumen or EPDM. And but in order to do that, there was just not enough time to design it, go out to bid, and then get it all done. So, and it would have been a lot more money. So this was the better solution.
And this could be done this summer?
He's ready to go. If I call him, he's ready. As soon as I have approval, I'm supposed to call him. He's gonna come in and sign the contract. And he's got 2 big jobs coming up. He wants to do this before those jobs start.
Okay, so the contract is for 154?
Yep.
Okay.
So-
So walk me through how we get to 200.
So 154, and then I absorbed a lot of the costs in my operating budget, and for all the roofing repair and different things we had to do. We had to buy a lot of ceiling tiles because teachers worried about mold and different things. So mold doesn't grow that way, but to appease people and to keep it.
This
they
is
were-
while it was leaking?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we were doing all kinds of things to keep the environment as best we could for them. But I still have a $13,429 bill that I don't have room to pay. So part of the money would be for that repair that we did. And then
So
once we stop,
your repair account would go into the red if you paid that bill?
I have $900, I think, or $1,200 left in my
Okay,
roof
thank you.
repair account. And my town building account has 13,000 left for any bills coming the rest of the year. And my school building account has 9,000 left as of this morning. So, and then anytime you're taking a roof apart, we could have other damage. So I want to have extra money just to be prepared for any surprise that we haven't seen. Because again, with that rock, until you move it back, you can't see what's there. So if something out of the ordinary comes, I just wanted a cushion for just in case.
So how much are you allowing for a cushion?
So that's what, 160,
167.
167,
Five.
so that's
167.
33,000.
32.5.
20% of the cost of the job.
So-
Okay.
And if that money's not used, it would just
Go the same place.
go
that
in
the-
the same place it would if we left it in the
in the reserve account.
reserve account.
Yeah.
Right?
So
Close out the same way.
this is the information that we need in your narrative when you come forward, like more detail about the dollar values, how you're arriving at what you're asking for. You gave us a lot of good detail about how old it is and so on and so forth. But the next time, I'm sure we'll see you next year sitting in
not.
front of us. Well, you never
I'd
know.
rather not make this I'd rather busy with other reasons. I'm hoping I don't have to come back annually for,
We won't take that personally.
We get that a lot.
Yeah, I don't understand.
maybe we can drink next time at like Free House or something, but, no.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
so
fine.
I'll do a spreadsheet next time attached to it as well.
Yeah.
The last time I didn't have any detail, I come up with more detail this time, brought my show and tell, but I can do a little more. And I think last time we were talking about trying to give me more money than I needed, just to be safe, so that's why I was like, on this one here, every time we move rock, there was a surprise.
Find something.
And so we got pretty creative patching this to get us through the winter. And I thank Tremco a lot because they really went above and beyond to salvage it and
Yeah.
solve it. They were up there in the cold and the wind. There's one of the
Yeah, it was
pitches,
brutal.
you can actually see the ice and there's something blue. We were trying to put a top down to try to at least deflect water, and all that did was freeze underneath it, which we knew would probably happen, but again, we were trying everything, and in those temperatures, you're not gonna go up there and patch roof.
Yeah.
You know, every time we walked on it, we were probably cracking it.
It was raining or snowing.
Oh, it's portable.
Really wicked every
Could you
time.
walk me through you said something about venting the old roof to get
Yeah.
some of the water out?
So moisture's in there now, and that moisture is
It's
really
all-
no,
it's throughout the whole roof.
yeah. So across the roof, there'll be, I forget it was every, I don't know what's in this, it's in the proposal, how many feet apart.
Where did you get those pictures from?
They were in the packet that Tony gave us, or left for us.
I don't have it here, but,
Oh.
it'd be every, call it 20 feet, and the venting is just designed so the roof will breathe, and it will help take some of that moisture out and, help from the, hopefully the roof having any other issues as far as, like, as every winter when that moisture freezes, it expands and contracts, and that's what was happening was here, it was breaking. So by doing this new modified roof and putting these vents in, it should prevent all these problems from happening and keep us a more stable roof surface. I do actually have a brochure that shows an old roof and a new roof once it's with the new system on it. But yeah, the venting was suggested by Tremco to help with drying out this piece here. You know, in today's day and age, if we were to redo this, the insulation would be probably about anywhere from 12 to 15 inches. So we're not ripping that all out, which would be the ideal solution.
So how much of the roof are we replacing with this?
We're coating this whole section, which is that center classroom.
Okay.
So I think that might be the,
You're doing 70% of the roof? Why not 100% of it, just to avoid
The
that?
whole-
I'm doing that whole section.
doing the
Oh, okay, all right,
So that
I'm sorry,
rectangle
okay,
consists of this
all right,
area
got
here.
it, got it.
So this is the gym and
Good.
a couple classrooms, and this is the cafeteria
Okay,
and the kitchen. So we're doing that whole section. So that whole section will get covered in this three-ply system.
Were the leaks throughout the whole roof, or were they?
There were, one classroom took it hard, the hallway right outside that classroom. And then probably 4 other classrooms had 3 to 4 leaks going consistently. So I was buying, they look like ceiling tiles, but they have a hose coming out of it,
Yeah.
putting those in. Those were going in the bucket, so every classroom had 1 or 2 of those. This one classroom really had mostly tarps. They look like tarps, but they have a hose that connects in the middle to try to defer the water into it.
Yeah, I realized that one classroom was just not usable.
Yeah, you couldn't, they moved her out and found another spot for her, and
That's
we couldn't use that classroom at all.
Yeah, it's disruptive is a good word for it.
Yeah,
Because I think,
I get, you know,
And this, and just because that's where the water's coming out doesn't mean
That's
that's
not
where
where
it's
it's
going
at.
in.
right, yeah.
This water travels, so.
So when
Fine.
you look at
That's the
70%.
reason why you're doing the whole roof as opposed to
Yeah.
continuing with a patch strategy, I take it?
Yep,
I mean, we'd all like to wait till the outcome of, and not invest
Absolutely.
$200,000 in this building if
We
if
did make a
we could avoid
commitment
it.
to the principal and to the teachers that whatever we're gonna do, we're gonna try to get a solution in that would prevent this from happening next winter.
I need,
That
no
was-
matter what, we need.
but you
till
gotta
2028
have to do
they can move
something
in.
for the next 3 years anyway,
Yeah.
so we
So
would
when
have
you
to
look
do
at this picture here,
right? We don't have a
you
choice.
don't usually patch a
can't
roof,
use the
you don't
school
have that
roof.
extensive of a leak. That's over the classroom that was really having trouble. But then, when you started moving rock, because we started seeing where the leaks were, and then they started to go up investigating and find seams, and they could literally put their fingers under the seams and lift them, or there'd be a big crack. So then, those are every seam. So we were starting to patch every seam, every crack, and that's how we started getting control of it. But we had to wait till it dried up, because you just can't keep doing anything to the roof.
No,
So this was
I understand.
probably worst case scenario, I would call it. I was in your office every day just giving you
Yeah.
updates.
Yeah,
I dealt with the teachers union and the school department and the principal every day, and
my
and try to, there was nothing I could give them as an answer that says, hey, I'll solve it by tomorrow, but I promised, Eric and I promised, because we
But
talked,
it's a
you know, we will
22-year,
solve it for next winter, and,
unfortunately, it's a 22-year-old roof with a 10-year warranty.
yeah.
How long will that last?
They're saying it will last up to 10 years.
So this is a good fix for a
This is a
short
good
term.
fix to get us through,
Okay.
and then if we tear down the building,
It's still gotta,
then it
we need
doesn't
something,
matter.
but
If
we need something
keep the
for 3
building,
years.
what I'd probably do, again, we'd start using the capital plan, and we would do the kitchen and calf roof, and then the windows, and then the boilers. The other part of the roof for the few classrooms on the end, then come back and do this section towards the end.
Oh, I see what
So
you're
you
saying. You'd have to
would
do a
cycle
whole
it.
new, you wouldn't just do this to the rest of the roof.
You would do, yeah, we'd do
Yeah,
a
you
complete
would
replacement.
evaluate it and
All right.
would do the, what's, on other ones, if you could
So-
plan it, we would have went to
yeah.
code, added insulation
As,
and did all that.
as an aside, ballpark. A roof on the entire school, you mentioned windows, boilers, and something else.
So
Roof,
there's roof,
window,
boilers,
boiler, windows.
and, there's couple different sections of roof. The windows, the boilers,
I thought there was some, oh, maybe I just, I might, maybe,
Yeah.
I
But
might
if
have,
you look
okay.
at-
But, so
like-
just ballpark, like, in 15 seconds, I don't want like a detailed outline. How much will that cost?
looking about, rough guess,
Yeah,
7 million.
7 million.
It's right now we're doing the west at 3 million plus the design,
Okay.
so call it 3.25, actually,
Just for the windows.
just for the windows, right? Then the roofing project for all that, it's probably 500,000 plus. The boiler room will probably be, based on past boiler rooms,
Boiler,
half a
yeah,
million.
window. So the windows, the roof, and the
5,
boiler,
6.
that's the third thing.
Yeah.
So that's $7 million to repair a very, very old building.
And that doesn't,
Not to mention the unit ventilators in each classroom,
the
which.
flooring, we've already abated everything in that building, except the only thing that has,
Oh.
the only things left in that building that haven't been abated are the floors, some of the VCT tile, and the wrap on the boilers. We've done, this year here, as part of my asbestos fund, we removed, in the boiler room, every ounce of asbestos in the boiler room. Just recently did that, and that was part of my operation budget. Then, a couple of years back, when we did the sailing tiles, once we had them out, we abated all the piping that was above the ceiling. So we've gotten rid of that. So there's been a lot of great things that benefit us down the road, whether we tear it down, we don't have to abate it then, or if we keep going ahead. Anytime you get rid of any of that material,
Yeah,
that's great.
it's a good thing.
So
Hopefully you're
You're gonna
doing-
Thank you.
replace the tile in the classrooms?
most of them are replaced. I think there's, if I remember correctly, there's 27 stains. Now, residual water just keeps coming out, so like people think, oh, it leaked again. But what it is
Just what's
we're
already
up there
there.
doing maintenance on exhaust fans. Or every time you put pressure, you squeeze another little water, it may drip. And but there's no mold, there's no danger. The school, the union requested, the teacher union requested that we bring in the state's board of health during this whole thing. So they come in and did air quality testing, and everything came out fine. We were confident because we deal with Amar from Universal, and we followed everything he said. That time of year, you're not going to create mold. We're not going to have an issue. But we listened to him and did all these things to just make sure we didn't create an issue. And like I said, I think I spent $5,000 on ceiling tiles, if not a little more than that. The rain catchers and things, I know them probably $5,000 in there. And I ate all that in my operating budget and tried to and just manage the rest of the year. But I can reuse a lot of that stuff. Hopefully, I never have to.
Great.
But we do own it now, and but it became a problem. We weren't the only ones with a roof leak, so ordering some of that stuff, it just wasn't sitting on shelves, and there was some impatience, which I understand from the school, going, "Why don't you have it yet?" But I literally was calling vendors every day, going, "Is it in yet? Is it in yet?" So,
Thank
no,
you.
We do own some of that.
Well, it sounds like you did an amazing
Yes,
job
thank you.
doing the best you can in a bad situation. So
It was interesting.
I
You
hope
had a couple-
everybody appreciated
I had
that.
a full head of hair before that started.
No, you didn't.
I always wear a hat, you don't know.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? All right, well, I'll entertain a motion then for $200,000.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? And it's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank
again,
you.
Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
Appreciate both of you. Thank
Hopefully
you.
you used some of that asbestos fund to take out everything you can from the north, because that timeline in the summer of '28 is very tight. And if they
again,
have to
in the
do
north-
abatements at the north, that's gonna blow it out of the water.
Yeah, we've done, the whole boiler room's been abated. We were looking at, and I think I may have my 5-year plan, starting to do some of the classrooms in the hallways from that 9x9 tile. And then when we started talking more and more and the school became more of a reality, when George was even there, we backed off a little, waiting to see what happened. But again, we look at it as any bit of it we can get out. We have to keep a HERA books, they're called, for all the asbestos for every school. And those books, Brian in my office does an amazing job, and we keep it up. So you go to that book, you can see any place that had asbestos and then what's left of asbestos in the building. And a lot of the buildings, it's very little.
Great.
There's always sealants and different things that can happen, and it was the wonder cure for everything, and it would help manufacturing, but it was what it came, the dangers that came along later on. So, but we try to use that. I'm probably going to request whatever money I have left to carry over. I haven't told either one of these two that yet, because I'd like to do, like, try to put a plan to doing more abatement of, like, maybe a classroom or maybe a hallway the next summer or something, you know? So I'd like to, the more we can get out, the better off we are. So if I can do it through capital improvements, or that my operating budget instead of capital improvements, that it's actually a benefit as well. So,
Okay.
just little things, something that things to come. All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank
Have
you.
a great night.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Eric or Stephanie, do you have the balance in the reserve account after this?
Absolutely, $784,712.
After the transfer of the 200, or
After the transfer of the
290?
Oh.
290,280.
okay?
So our reserve is 1.5 million, is that correct?
1.3?
1.3?
Your reserve for this year was 1.3 million.
Okay.
You already transferred out $185,000 for the generator, as
Okay.
well as $40,000 for the design feasibility,
That was me.
which brought you down to $1,075,000.
Okay, and that design feasibility, that was for what project?
The elementary.
That was for the elementary.
We had 15,000 of it was for the same risk. The $25,000 of it was for geotechnical.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
If we were going to
I
need it,
remember
we
now.
didn't. So that
Yeah.
$25,000 is sitting. It's going to go into free cash, just like.
Okay,
Same way.
terrific. Okay, so, do you just want me to sign this?
Yes.
Definitely. Just sign it. Don't ask any questions.
2025, number present and voting, 8.
Dennis, the visuals were great.
Oh, great.
Really made a difference.
This
Thank
whole
you.
presentation was very helpful.
Thank you.
For both requests, a significant improvement over last year, so, and I appreciate it, since I gave you a hard time about it last year.
I learned though.
I appreciate it.
Very
Last year I was
coachable.
like,
Very
I don't know what to
coachable.
bring.
We've got samples this year.
Show us.
You can
Well,
never
I'm not
bring,
that
you can
proud
never
of that
bring
visual.
too much.
Hope not,
Roof
too.
sample.
Honestly, that's not that we don't want to see you, but that means there's a problem. So please don't come back.
Next year we'll have the meeting on the roof.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
Meeting on the roof
Stephanie.
next year.
Site visits. We'll do site visits.
Yeah, on the 94 degrees outside.
Do you want, do you want me to
Oh,
put in the
94.
balance? Or you can put
No,
that?
Okay.
Okay,
No, no.
all right, thank you.
Yeah. I stopped in traffic on the ride home. I was on 128 this afternoon when I came home.
Okay, moving along to review of financing for the elementary school project. Mr. Slagle.
Yes, thank you very much. So everyone who was able to attend last night, I appreciate you coming and sitting in that sauna.
It was awesome.
For as long as you sat. I think for those of you who are able to attend, you got a good view of the entirety of the project, which I think was important for everybody to. And Mary Ann probably dozed off in the back because she'd seen it 18 times, but I think it was good to kind of remind everybody where we started and where we were with the project. I think the important pieces that I wanted to bring out and kind of talk about again in front of this committee are the specifics about the cost and the financing. So for folks who are maybe watching at home and weren't watching last night, or for anyone who didn't have a chance to write down all the numbers, the project budget detail is as follows. So the total construction budget for the project is $137,743,666. On top of that are soft costs, which amount to $35,521,960. Those soft costs include things like the remainder of the design fee, all of our contingencies, furnishings, IT, all the other things that are in that project cost that aren't actual construction. That brings the total project budget for the new elementary school project to $173,265,626. So slightly more than 173 million. We got some really good news from the MSBA. For folks who may remember, last fall, the estimates that we were working on were conservative, and we estimated the total cost of the project at about 186 million, and we estimated that we were going to get about $54 million from the MSBA. So that was the basis for us looking at the cost last fall. Well, now we know that the total project budget is 173 million, and we're actually getting a little more than 62 million back from the MSBA. So that's significantly more than we anticipated. So that drives the town's share of the total cost of the project to 111 million. So the natural question is, and it's been asked since I think the first meeting that I attended at the school building committee, is the town going to put forward any funds to drive down that borrowing cost? Our estimates in the fall we weren't looking that far ahead. We were basing it just on if we borrowed the entire amount. As it's gotten closer, the proposal is going to be to take $15 million from the capital stabilization fund to buy down the debt. So instead of borrowing $111 million, we'd only need to borrow about $96 million. The combination of us getting the project cost down less than we thought it was going to be, us getting more money from MSBA than we thought, and then kind of buying down that debt with $15 million means that instead of a little over $700, which is what I was estimating in the fall for the average taxpayer, the average single family home, which is about $702,000, would pay $422 increase in the debt exclusion for this proposal. One of the other things that we've discussed in the past was how we were going to finance this. The town has had a history, and in fact, the high school project was financed on a declining debt schedule. So your first year was the highest amount of debt, and then the payments went down over the I believe it's a 25-year debt schedule for the high school. So in your last year of payments, it's about half of what it was in year number one. That's not what we're planning to do for this proposal. We're planning to have a fixed payment schedule. So every year we'll be paying about $5.77 million towards the paying down of the $996 million that we're borrowing, and that's going to go for 30 years. This estimate's based on a very conservative 4.5% interest rate. In the fall, I was based on the lender's suggestions. We were using a 4% interest rate. We still do hope that the interest rate is going to be less than 4.5%. We have a very good credit rating, and so we're hoping that we can get some aggressive financing. But we did, for purposes of these numbers, we used a conservative rate, which is 4.5%. So, kind of at the end of the day, it's going to be for residential property owners about 60 cents per every $1,000 of assessed value is going to be the increase in your taxes for that debt exclusion of 30 years. And at the end of 30 years, because it's a debt exclusion and not an override, the tax increase goes away. That $422 for the average taxpayer would be reduced for the next year.
Can you tell us what your balance in free cash and capital stabilization fund is now?
Sure. So so right now, I believe free cash is right around $32 million. No, actually, I apologize. I think it's around $31 million. Capital stabilization, after we put the additional funding into it at town meeting, is at $16 million.
So we're gonna draw that down to $1 million?
That's the plan.
That's
And then my proposal would be to build it up over time in $3 million increments. So as long as our free cash position can support it, we put another $3 million into capital stabilization next year till we get up to, the $10 million range, and then we can reevaluate whether or not we want to keep it in stabilization or have it in other vehicles. So that would mean in 3 years we'd have it back up to 10 million if we followed that schedule.
And for the purpose of anybody watching at home, when did you anticipate that this is going to hit the tax bills?
So that's a very good question. The debt exclusion, once it gets voted in, I believe in all likelihood, it's going to be hitting the tax bills in FY27.
Okay.
Because your first year of borrowing is not, you don't pay the full freight in your first year of borrowing. We have some options about how we're going to do the borrowing. That's things that we'll work out with our lender. But for purposes of debt exclusion, it would be going, I believe, in the FY27 bills.
So, you're not talking about doing permanent financing until the building's
No, we're gonna have to. We're gonna structure our financing.
Bond anticipation notes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it's going to affect the taxpayer for 32 years or 30, right? Because it's going to ramp while the construction's going on. You have to pay your bills.
Right. So we have to borrow sufficient to pay our bills, and we have to have a debt exclusion to cover the full amount of the
Right.
of the borrowing.
So you use bond anticipation notes as your expenditures, and then
ramp up.
when
So-
the building's occupied, you flip it to a 30-year fixed bond.
or
I mean, something like that.
or so, yeah, or something something less. I mean, I think because we're going to be bringing in from the debt exclusion probably more than the interest costs that we're going to be borrowing those first years. We're likely to pay. We'll pay the full freight, maybe be able to pay down more principal early of that borrowing, and then we're going to have $15 million of our own money to be able to
finance
to fill the financing gaps. But for purposes of the debt exclusion, you have to kind of structure it as though you're going to borrow everything the first year.
So that's a pretty impressive set of numbers. And I think just the percentage that the town is putting down is probably around 14%?
Yeah, I think that's.
And that's
right around
also very impressive.
15%. The town has a history of doing this for its large capital projects. It did it for the senior center. It did it for the town hall. I think it's appropriate that the town steps up and if, this is the very large capital project. I think it's appropriate that we use the resources that we have to buy down that debt and make the tax impact on the average taxpayer as little as we can.
Right.
It's something we talked about at school building committee. I mean, Marianne knows that it's one of the primary focuses was our concern about costs, but also about the tax impact of those costs, not just the costs themselves. So.
In returning money for the benefit of the taxpayers that we say every year at town meeting, we're moving money into capital stabilization fund, we're moving money into free cash for the future. So it's nice to be able to point at a number like this and the previous two projects and say, we did that. We took your money, put it aside, and then we used it. So I think that's very impressive, and I hope the town understands that.
Yeah, and that's my hope so as well.
Yeah.
Not every town has the luxury of being able to do this,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think the fiscal management that the town has shown has put us in a situation where for 3 projects in a row, the town's able to fork over, double-digit $1 million in support to lower the lending costs and borrowing costs. And as a result, we can absorb those other 2 projects into the levy, which I think was amazing.
Right.
And this project we hopefully drive down. So the other thing, and I say this every time I talk about this, which is this is the North Side project. This likely means there's going to be a West Side project. And I do firmly believe that if we time it correctly and get participation with the MSBA and work to have that project come into fruition in the mid-2030s, that we can do it without a debt exclusion. And because of our ability to pay off our pension liability at that time, we're going to have kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make a real capital investment in another school without having to raise taxes. So my plan is to be able to do these 2 projects, the two school projects, and only have the taxpayers be burdened with this one debt exclusion that they're doing right now.
Okay. Good.
Can I ask a little bit about the process question here about how we go about doing this? So allocating 15 million from capital stabilization, I would assume is part of the appropriation process that takes place at town meeting.
Correct.
So there'll be a
warrant article
vote,
for that.
a vote to raise and appropriate, well, however it's going to be. Will it be 1 vote or 2? So in other words, does the 15, because that 15 doesn't take 2/3 as a bond does.
Well, so a transfer from capital stabilization, I need to check to see whether that takes 2/3 or not. But there's definitely going to be multiple warrant articles. So there's going to be one for the 15 million, and then there's going to be one for the borrowing. We have to have a separate one,
which requires 2/3.
Which does require 2/3.
We know.
Yeah, so that we won't be able to get out of town meeting without a successful 2/3 vote on that.
So that process, so in anticipation of a September 13th,
September 13th.
there'll be a series, they'll be meeting with us formally to get a recommendation. There'll be a public hearing or
Right.
not, I'm not sure.
Yes.
And then a vote from this committee on whether it recommends the 15 million and whether it recommends the bond.
And we should be able to structure that meeting on the same night as the public hearing.
Yeah, and I've kind of
In fact, we just spoke about that, like,
I kind of unofficially committed to not trying very hard to not have any other articles on this special town meeting, so this is just to be focused on this one.
And that would take place in August, or?
well.
I mean, I just think we
see,
should,
I think this
put
is
some
something,
dates together for
Yeah.
vacationers.
we are going to have a conversation with the finance committee. We could do it if it doesn't interfere with the select board, regularly scheduled meetings on September 4th, which would, I believe that would give everybody enough time after the fact. If we held that meeting then, took our vote that evening, and we're done until town meeting. I'm afraid to go into the summer because the kids are gonna be returning to school those couple of days, like, what is it, Wednesday and Thursday, and then they're out on Friday. So I think there's a lot going on in a lot of the households in town, and people returning from vacation, that type of thing. So we don't have to decide tonight, but I think what we should do is certainly, ask if we can get polled on that and get that on the book so that we can
So Labor
all
Day's
make our
the-
own
Labor
plans
Day's
for the
first.
summer.
Labor Day is the first. We should
Labor
do it
Day's-
in August.
Labor Day's the 1st of September,
The Monday,
Monday the 1st.
it's the 1st?
Yeah.
That's Labor Day.
So the 4th.
Okay,
is
so we're
what-
talking about that the 2nd
about the
or the 4th?
second or the 4th.
Yeah.
I apologize, I don't have the select board schedule right in front of me. I don't know if they have a meeting on the 2nd or not.
So we should hold both nights.
We should. How much time do you think Bev needs to prepare? She has documents she needs to prepare after the fact, so maybe you could speak.
I'll double check
Or,
with her.
you know, we got to bring Tommy into the loop to make sure everything gets done. Tommy, if you could poll the Finance Committee, please, sometime within the next couple of days, and we'll see what dates we're looking at, find out from Bev what she needs from us and how much leeway she needs, if she needs to have anything printed, that type of
so
thing.
for the specials, historically for the specials, we don't mail out the warrant like we do for the annual town meeting. So we don't need to have that level of lead time, but we do have to get it printed. But that's something, I mean, I think we don't have to, we don't usually, I don't think we did for the last special, I think we did that here. We did.
We need a lot.
You may want to send out for this special.
That's fair, I wasn't really thinking about that, I might need 2,000 copies of it, we might need to,
Refreshing text print shop maybe.
yeah, no, that I'm
that's a
thinking
good
about it,
point.
That's probably wise. So I'll touch base with her and see what kind of time frame.
Okay.
I mean, that getting back print jobs, they know they're coming in a week is not unreasonable.
Okay.
So, if there's something on the 4th, we need it.
And it would be relatively slim.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Couple
going to be the warrant,
pages.
which we can already have prepared, and then it will just be your comment, your
You want another letter?
Teresa,
We'll see.
Hi, Andy.
you didn't turn the table, you can't see him.
I would have been looking right at him.
I have some questions from last night's presentation.
Oh, sure.
First one is, the MSBA gave us bonus points for the design.
Yes.
What was that for? Like,
So we got we got the lead.
Yes.
yeah.
The lead bonus points. So if you design it to certain standards
Yeah.
of efficiency, they give you. There's a certain you can get up to 4 or 5 bonus points that they give you
Yeah,
for
it was around
efficiency
that.
stuff. And so I think from day one we committed with our designer like we want those bonus points.
Okay.
So don't bother designing.
Well, the reason why I bring it up too is because the designers took a little bit of a beating. They were given a hard time yesterday.
I think they felt like yesterday went great.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got very thick skin.
There were some people that were really getting after them,
We
and
do as
I've seen worse, and there weren't that many of them.
stuff from our committee than that.
so I just was wondering, are we giving them the credit that they also deserve for making sure that we are LEED certified and therefore are getting bonus points and therefore are getting
saving
a
millions of
higher
dollars.
exactly. Like, did anybody calculate what that's worth in dollars?
Yeah,
Right?
I have it on a spreadsheet, and
we're
it's not.
kicking
No, it's not.
It's not nothing, right?
It's
We're
nothing.
kicking
We
around
should share
$18
that.
million because we're doing a 12,000 square foot, something like that,
Gym.
gymnasium, right?
Yep, 11 million, I think the gym extra is. So
Something
what are
like
we
that.
saving? And I'm thinking, that's why I asked Dennis the question earlier. The 7 million we're not gonna spend on a roof, boiler, and windows pays for the gym. Like I try to think about how to reappropriate that money.
Yeah.
We're gonna spend it on a building that's 40 years old to try to bring
More
it
than
back to
that,
life. And that's just gonna end up being a money pit. Take this 7 million, that
60.
offsets the gym. But I don't know that the gym is the only concern people have. I think that's something they can hang their hat on.
Yeah, but those 5 percentage points probably add up to, several $1 million.
Oh, sure.
I mean, it's.
How do we share more information around what we're doing and how we do it so that it can be absorbed easily by people? Because there's lots of misinformation on social media, which I know you can't control. But how do we get out the right messaging and accurate information? I think the slide last night, I took a picture of it, the 422 for the average size. That to me is very powerful information. But how do we get more of that information out there? Things like what you just brought up, Andy, things about what it's going to cost us to maintain the schools going forward. Because there's a balance there. Nobody likes the idea of raising taxes and spending $111 million or $173 million. At the end of the day, we're all spending that much money. State's covering a portion of it. No one likes spending that much money, but what will it cost us if we don't?
That's already been vetted and that's been out there for a while.
I mean, we've tried.
We've done as much as we could to try to get that information out.
Yeah, the committee, when we sent out this the
Flyers and everything.
townwide flyers, it talked about kind of the cost of doing nothing and what it would cost to renovate those other buildings. It is
I know it all
challenging.
exists, but it doesn't feel like anybody's heard it.
Yeah,
Like we have because we've seen it.
Yeah.
But how do we redistribute that so people have?
Well, I think as
accurate
we're
information?
going forward, the committee's has committed to do a bunch of other outreach. You know, we're going to be at the table. I'm going to be on Saturday for 5 hours at the table to discuss the school. So feel free to drop by. I know we've talked about. We've had multiple community forums. I think we're going to have community forum number 8
Yeah, we're
or
at
something.
right, yeah.
The reality is, a lot of people aren't start paying attention to this till the weeks leading up to the special time meeting and the vote. So you don't want to fire all your bullets now when people aren't going to be paying attention in the summer anyway. One of the reasons why we're having the special time meeting in September, instead we could have had it
In summer.
now. We could have had it literally right now, because we know all the numbers. We could have had it now, but we thought that once schools were out, people were going to not be able to be paying attention. There wasn't really enough time from the time the MSBA was going to give us the final number to be able to do the sales job. So we were worried if we had it in July or August, people were just going to be turned off.
Right.
So I am worried that they're going to be turned off until they get back and see you guys at the Finance Committee after Labor Day, and that's going to be we got 2 week ramp up when people are really paying attention again. But the schools have committed to being proactive about informing the parents about the information about the project, and I think that's going to be important because that cohort is the one that's really motivated to kind of show up, and we just have to kind of keep putting the word out. We got the tax calculator's up and running, so it's on the website now. So if you want to see what your taxes increase is going to be, you can
PSA,
click on
right?
your assessed. Click on your assessed value.
Then blast that out onto Facebook
Yeah.
and whoever's on Facebook.
Repeatedly.
Yeah,
like,
and we
not
can
just
pick it up and
once. Like
blast
it
it
has
out.
to come out like every 10 days.
Yeah, and so
Something like that.
I think it's we're going to do our best to get all the information out, and we don't want it to be overload.
Yeah.
So we have to pick and choose kind of our but we one of the reasons why we had that meeting last night was so that all the boards and committees in town who touch this can kind of know. So if somebody comes to you, you don't have to say, I don't know, Eric never told me anything. No, I told you something, so you can you can answer some questions, and you don't have to refer them to me.
I'm not worried about the people that were in that room last night getting the information. I'm worried about, and I guess you can't fix apathy, right? But how do
Yeah.
we
How do we
get it out there more?
get it out there?
So I understand, excuse me, I understand the point you're trying to make because I deal with that a lot in my neighborhood. We have people who are not on social media, and they may not be at the senior center yet,
Right.
but they just never went on social media. And I think the only way to reach them, truthfully, is by print. So that's like another layer of communication.
So we're gonna we put something in the last water in the
Right.
last
Yeah, everything
water
was
bill.
on the water bills.
Yeah.
We have another water bill
didn't see
before the.
My wife did.
And at the beginning, well, not the beginning, what was it, November? The town spent thousands of dollars on a mass mailing to every household,
Yeah, that was
Yep.
in October.
right? And people still don't know about
Right.
So I had 2 questions.
it. And
Oh,
can I
I'm
just-
sorry. Did we interrupt you?
Not you, not just the whole thing, the whole conversation.
We're all very sorry.
So, no, that's,
Assert yourself, Andy. Let's go.
I was being patient.
You should
So
be honored that your
My-
comments
I
stimulated
know,
such
right?
a great
My-
conversation.
My question. So, the other one is, why are we doing flat payments? You made a comment yesterday that actually is costing us more from an interest standpoint,
Yes.
which I totally get. Why would we do it that way? What's the benefit?
So Scott asked the question last night, and the benefit is that in the first year, the tax increase is much less.
So it's optics.
If you're a senior who thinks I've got 15 years left, if we did it in fixed payments, you're going to be paying the highest in that first year and the highest for those next 15 years, and you're not going to see the benefit of the lower tax increases for the following 15 years. So if you're thinking about a fixed income senior, which was one of the demographics that we're worried about, this payment structure allows them to have as equal savings as everybody else. It also doesn't put if you have a choice of saying in year one it's going to be 700, but it's only going to be 300 in year 30. Somebody who may not be thinking about 30 years from now is going to say, how's that going to help me?
Right.
You know, he's going to save the town some interest, which it would, but it's not their marginal tax increase is going to be larger if they're not going to be in the house for 30 years. So it's we did think about it a lot, and I think in an effort to try and make year one as palatable as possible for a mixed demographic in town, some of whom have really issues with tax increases.
Yep.
That's why we structured it this way. So we're willing to absorb some increased interest costs to make the tax burden, flat over those 30 years, so that you don't have a big hit in year one.
I think that's, thank you, Scott. I'm sorry, I didn't pick up well enough on that question or the answer yesterday. It might have been the 94 degree temperature.
Yeah, it might have been the sauna that we were all sitting in.
I might have been dehydrated at the time.
The other thing, just to follow up on that question, because I think it's a good one, the people 26 years from now are going to be getting the same benefit from that building as the people 3 years in, because that school is going to last for 60 years. So it's not that in year one they get the kids who go in year one get the most benefit. So my grandkids who aren't born yet, and I don't have anybody who lives in that part of town, but they're not going to get if that building's 10 years from now, they're still going to get to use it and all its features. So I actually like the concept of equalizing the payment, because
I think it makes a lot of sense.
it's,
I think
agree.
that
Equal
needs to be
usage.
called out more as a plus for how you're doing this.
Yes.
I think
Because that makes a lot of sense to me.
the other thing is, there's lots of people who don't understand declining payments.
Right.
They look at that first year and they think that's what it is, and that's all they focus on.
Yeah.
Because when you pay a car payment, when you pay a mortgage payment as a residential person, all you know is fixed payments. Every loan you have is a fixed payment loan. So it's way easier for someone to understand it's $422, the next year it's going to be $422, right? And it's going to be $422, as opposed to we're doing fixed principal payments. But that means that the actual payment goes down over the 30
Well,
years.
let's be honest too. That's more palatable to probably older people that see less value in adding a new school.
Yeah.
They're not going to show up in droves on voting day, right, or town hall day, to say no, I don't want this, right? Like it's
If we can
it's
make
better. It's more palatable. It's a better chance of it going through and
And
getting.
that's the plan. The goal of this financing plan is to make this school seem affordable
Yeah.
or reasonable to enough people to get it passed, and that's the goal. And I know that there are schools of this size where the increase in taxes that being proposed is double this in towns, and they're passing. But I think if we do it this way, I think it has a much better chance of passing.
Smoother.
And gives us
Totally get it.
kind of a cleaner runway to get it.
I'm just thinking about when we were talking the $700
Yes.
range
Yeah.
minimum, and it was kind of a panicking kind of time that how are we going to get people to be able to accept this? even people who want the school,
Sure.
that is a big increase. So kudos to you and to whoever worked with you. I'm sure Stephanie had a lot to do with it. And, you know, I agree. I think I heard from several people here already that are on board with the way you've structured it. So it should be very agreeable to most people.
That's our hope.
Yeah. So that's great.
Just a quick question, do you have any plans to go to the senior center and
Sorry?
present the new numbers?
Absolutely.
What about the library?
The library's tougher because you don't have you never know whether you're going to have
Yeah.
a pool of people or nobody.
What about what about your I didn't look at it very closely in your office. Maybe I'll take a look at it before I leave. The model.
Oh, the big model. Oh,
You
I
could have
love
like
that.
a traveling model, you know, bring it to the senior center.
It's gonna
for
be
a
at
meeting,
the
bring it to the library, bring it,
At the-
you
at
know,
the
4th
one on
of
the floor.
July. People might stop in and see it at the library, you know.
It's possible, yeah. I mean, we're trying to figure out over the next. You know, we got a window now, from June to September, to try and figure out how we maximize our outreach. I know that there's at least one senior center visit, and we're going to take the model and we're going to you know, give them the new numbers, and hopefully that'll ease their fears a little bit and try to combat the stuff that they're seeing on social media that may not be accurate. That's the key.
And maybe that'd be a great thing to put in the front hall.
Well, I wanted it in
When
my
it's
office
not
for a little while.
Yeah. Well, when it's not traveling, you know, and people can stop if they're in here, they can take a look at it. I think we did that before with senior center. We had a lot of
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
we had a lot of prints and things like that set out for it. Anyway,
Is there anything else you need from us tonight, or?
From that one, no. This is just
Did
just
you
an
have-
update.
Yeah.
okay.
So we're estimating currently a 4.5% interest rate. Do we
Yes.
know what that annual payment will be by the town?
So it's about 5.77 million.
Okay.
Actually, I take that back. That was when we were borrowing 95 million, so it's like 5.8, like 5.83.
Okay.
I apologize. So 5.83 million for 30 years.
And then the dreaded question of if this doesn't pass. You talked a little bit about it last night.
Sure.
So you talked about the options are the select board can decide based on, depending on which vote passes or doesn't pass, or if neither passes, you can go back to the select board and they can decide if we just want to scrap this or if we want to resubmit or bring it back for another vote.
Yeah, so we got two votes. We got two hurdles. We got a town meeting hurdle and a ballot question hurdle. And if those split, the MSBA gives you 10 days to basically come back to them and say, this one failed. We think we know why. Here's our plan to try and turn the town around. We're going to reschedule it. And they can authorize you to go and try to get the one that you missed.
Yeah.
If there is an ultimate no, if both of them fail, or we try to come back and do one and it never succeeds, then we're in a little bit of limbo with the MSBA. You can request, I believe, the MSBA to try to let you back up in the process and look at a different option. But part of the benefits of being the MSBA is that it's not just this $50 or $62 million that we're getting. For all of the work that we've done up now, we had a financing plan with them where the state paid a portion of our costs for all our design work up till now. And we had allocated $1.2 million for the town, but the costs were more than that, and they were paying a portion of it. They won't pay anything anymore.
Okay.
You're kind of out of the
Yeah.
you're out of the running for them to help until you got to this position again. That would be the building committee would have to make decisions about what they wanted to do. That would be a big lift. If you go out of the program, you're not eligible for schematic design money again for the same project. So we would, I think if folks are familiar, there's one of the technical schools that a few years ago went, one of the techs up in Haverhill, I believe,
Yep.
went forward, failed.
Whittier.
Went forward. They failed. They got back in the program last year, but they're not eligible for financing for their schematic design because they already went through the project with that project and failed. So there are ramifications if you don't make it all the way
Yeah.
through.
And I guess I'm guessing that if that were to happen for our project, your long-term building plan that you've, put all that thought into kind of becomes limbo.
Yeah, I mean, are there still options? Sure, but as I think Dennis has mentioned, just with one school, our capital plans would change radically over the next 10 years. We'd have to make a decision at a town level as to whether or not we wanted to pursue another elementary school in the interim, or do you want to wait until 2036 when we might be able to get one without a debt exclusion? That again, even if we did a consolidated, if we went through the process and got a consolidated school, that still only solves half of the elementary schools, and so then you'd have to figure out what you wanted to do about the other half. I think so for at least the school side of the equation, it does throw it a little bit into limbo. I would still advocate that on the town side, we would still move forward with the plans that we have now, because part of the way that I'm envisioning it is, that we're doing schools with either the one-time money we're going to get in 10 years or the debt exclusion, and the free cash position that we have is how we're going to fund our municipal buildings. And so that part of the plan I think we would still try to do, but we would have to reevaluate because we might have to spend capital plan money or free cash on roofs and boilers and things like that.
So, I mean, and to me, that's kind of the key here that I'm not sure has really been hit home as hard, is the fact that no is not free.
Right.
No is,
Millions of dollars.
we still have 6 60-year-old elementary schools that are going to need significant investment over the next decade. And I think we know the cost of yes. I'm hopeful that we can try to put some numbers around the cost of no. Because I think when you start to do that, it becomes less of a 432 versus no increase in my taxes.
No, it's 432 versus maybe $200-300.
So, or at least for those 3 schools, because that you're only saying no for those 3 schools. So I just think it's important to again get the facts out and to try to do that.
And
So
I think what
there's
The
all
building
sorts of
committee has
numbers.
that number.
Yeah, there's numbers for the replacement of the buildings as far as windows, the upkeep.
Yep.
That's all been done.
Yeah.
So I just
Those
think
numbers
that's important to
exist.
get out.
Yeah.
Right.
the numbers around what we've spent and will, like what the state has
Yeah, and the
spent,
committee
that
tries
should
to
be
push
added
it
in
out,
too,
but
because
people-
Yep, no, I hear you.
all that
Sometimes people
stuff
don't like to see a
builds a
lot of
pile
numbers.
that says,
I mean,
okay,
every community
have to sit
forum.
like
down
he
and
said,
figure
yes
out.
is this, but no is still something.
Yeah.
And it's something
Time with the
significant. It's
recaps,
tens of millions of
at the
dollars.
You have to
community forums,
simplify
all
it.
that's discussed.
It was interesting because last night I think one of the school committee members mentioned, like, this building is a school on the other side of town, and so this environment, including the heat, is what the kids were in.
Yep.
Not only not only are our schools not have air conditioning, they were built before computers, so there's no infrastructure to do what modern education in these schools. So it's I do
They were
think
built before Chapter 766. They were built before, as you pointed out, they were built before special education,
right. It's
or at about the same time. that
yeah,
ours.
it's a little bit of a baffling idea to have all your schools
Built
in
at
a
the same
town
time.
built at the same time. I mean, kudos for them because they built a bunch of schools in that period. But I think there comes a time when you have to kind of step up and realize that you have to invest in your schools. And I think we're in an opportunity now where if we do it the right way, we can do it with a minimal tax impact for the residents.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the elementary school project? All right, so we'll move along then to the FY27 budget hearing schedule.
Oh, something. Oh, well. That's different.
We had Dennis just brought up the actual numbers from the Marion was mentioning of how much it would be to redo the north, and I think it would.
36 million to 40 million for the Woburn Street.
Yeah.
29 to 32 for the north. I got a public records
So,
request this week.
so 36 and 29 are the low
Yeah.
numbers?
Without any
What the hell are we talking about?
state, without any state.
And yeah, there's no state aid for that. Those projects.
I mean, it's 70 million versus 111. What the hell are we talking about?
Oh,
Who can be
versus
upset about
90.
this?
That doesn't
But
even
I'm
include-
sorry,
That doesn't include the
96.
Wildwood.
That
96.
doesn't include the Wildwood, that's only 2 schools.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
yeah. The Wildwood's another 30.
common sense is an easy answer here.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's fiscally responsible to do what we're trying to accomplish.
That's what I've been trying to say that this whole time.
It takes me a while, but I get there.
Okay.
It'd be irresponsible.
Sorry about that interruption.
That's all right. Should we move
Thank you,
along
Dennis. It was
with
helpful.
FY27 budget hearing schedule and changes that we,
So I know I mentioned it. If you don't mind,
Yes, please.
I mentioned it
Go ahead.
to other kind of members, and I'm hoping that to propose tweaking the schedule for the budget hearings. I know that the Finance Committee is typically scheduled 2 hearings a week for 6 weeks,
5,
or
6
6
weeks.
weeks.
Yeah.
And so the month of February into the beginning of March, and I appreciate the detail and the time that this committee puts into that work because it's really important. I do think it's possible to get the same kind of bang for our buck if we did schedule it on 1 or 2 Saturdays. Now, one of the challenges of a Saturday one of the challenges of scheduling it that way is we know the schools sometimes end up several weeks after the rest of us getting their budget. So you may have to schedule an evening for the schools. But for the town side, I think there's a argument to be made that we could be really efficient on a Saturday to come in and fully videotaped and do the same level of detail that the committee does on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but to consolidate that into less of a month-long process and more of a 1 or 2 day process. I will say that part of my proposing this is I've done it in the past. It's the way that Townsend did their budget hearings before they had it before both the Finance Committee and the Select Board. You basically had a 1-hour slot, and so instead of having these people be on a Tuesday night, they would be in the 9 o'clock slot, and then the next group would be in the 10 o'clock slot. So we wouldn't have the whole all departments show up at once. You stagger them over the day, obviously leaving more time for the things like DPW and public safety that have a lot more things to discuss, and having people like Lou pop in from outside, say his 5 minutes, and then be done. Because I do think there are several departments that the Finance Committee could effectively run through in a very quick amount of time. And I think if we did something like that, well, I understand that Saturdays are sacred. And I understand that people as a father of 3 kids, I understand that willing to sacrifice a Saturday is a big ask. I just wonder if it might be a more efficient way to get the information out to the public in one fell swoop, rather than death by 1,000 cuts over 6 weeks. So I'm interested in to seeing what the finance committee has to say about it. Obviously, it's this is my proposal, but I am not in charge of your hearing schedule. I will say, given the kind of things that we talked about during this last run through, which is maybe the next in our next run through, we segregate the things that are contractual and aren't really up for discussion. Mm-hmm. I think that might actually be a way to make the process even more efficient. And so, it's entirely possible we could try to schedule it for just one Saturday, and in one, 4 or 5 hour swoop on a Saturday, be done with the finance committee's review of everything but schools, and then
Right.
and then have the schools later.
I think that I'm interested in pursuing this change, not only because after spending many, many years coming out in January, February, and early March, at the end of a long day and coming down here and sitting here for hours and looking at numbers, you're not getting the best of us at that time of day. I'm also thinking long-term, how does the Finance Committee continue to attract the caliber of people that we have currently? One of the ways, I think, is to make it more efficient and less demanding of their time, because the truth is that we have seen, and I have seen when I look back from when I first started, we would go through our budget hearings, and that was it. That's all. We'll see you next January. Now we have meetings throughout the year for different reasons that are very legitimate. So the more we can make this role attractive to other people is also something that we need to be considering. And being open-minded to something that it would be far more efficient. We would schedule people in tight little amounts, and the Finance Committee would always have the option to say, we're concerned about some of the things, or we want to hear more about some of the things that are going on in a specific department. Let's schedule them for a longer period of time so we can have the freedom to discuss things without worrying about running out of time. So that's my thought on it. And I know some of you may be hearing this for the first time, so, we're not taking a vote on it tonight. We're not, committing to anything. Just, when you feel you want to discuss it, we can.
I have just my concern is that scheduling is difficult for everybody. Mm-hmm. And I've missed a few meetings this semester for various commitments that I've had. If I miss that Saturday, I miss the bulk of my work on this committee for the year. And that to me is a little concerning, that we may miss some folks, family emergencies happen, and if it's all in one day, we kind of lose the opportunity to get everybody's input.
Yeah. I don't think
That
it would
day
be
is
one day. I think that's a
Even
long.
if it's two.
That's
Even
a
if
big.
But okay, so
lift,
it's two,
yeah.
right? It's still, if you
Yeah.
lose somebody for a day, half their budget,
Right.
you lose that input.
Right.
If you lose 2 hours on a Tuesday night, most people are going to be here the next Thursday, and there's enough of us that have missed some, and I know some folks have made them all, but that's the only thing that I can think of
Right.
initially that's a concern to me, that if we only have 2 meetings to go through all of it, and somebody has to miss something, we may miss.
Okay, so it's 2 meetings plus the schools are separate.
Yeah.
So,
Well, now it's not sounding as efficient as it did a minute ago when it was
Well-
1 5-hour meeting. I've gone from 1 5-hour meeting to 2 meetings and another meeting for schools,
We don't
and
have
now
any-
we've got 12 meetings and we're
Schools were
back to
always
where we
gonna
were.
have
No, I'm kidding.
the schools are on a
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
schedule.
I know.
So we can't get their information.
Yeah.
We're locked with them. So that would be probably in an evening meeting, you know.
It would be the kind of thing that we would schedule far in advance, so, you know, we would, just kind of like town meeting, you know, you'd know, this is this, I mean, go out in the budget, if this was decided, it'd be part of the budget memo that gets sent out, you know, in the fall, saying, this is when your budget's due, this is when your you know, your capital plan's due, by the way, this is the date of the FinCom, you know, hearing that you're gonna be.
I honestly think it would be helpful too if we got the budget book.
Yeah,
Like,
thank you.
I don't know about anyone else, but getting the budget book
On Friday.
on Friday when we have a Tuesday meeting, it's really not acceptable. You have to flip through that budget book, get ready for what's coming up. I mean, I personally think if you go on like another Saturday beyond that, you can, you know, absorb your budget book a little bit.
Yeah, we should have a
instead
couple of weeks to go through that if we're gonna plow through it in a day or two,
Yeah,
a Saturday
you
or
know,
two.
you can-
And that makes sense. The other thing this does is builds in some more time.
Right.
So with that full budget book has to be done before the first hearing. But if the hearing was in the middle of when the hearings were, that would give an extra few weeks when you guys could review it. There would be obviously a few weeks at the end before the schools were done, where if there was some, you know, if you felt like you need to revisit things or concerns could be brought up. Yeah, I totally understand the kind of the downsides of it because it does turn it into a 1 or 2 shot deal.
But I also feel too that, you know, the past couple years, the nights are dragging into 9:30, 10 o'clock, some nights 10:30. It's getting to be really a long day on Tuesdays and Thursdays for almost a month and a half times.
Well, I think we should talk.
5 hours is like.
Yeah, it's never gonna happen in 5 hours. But I'd like to also talk about how we structure those meetings. You know, we spent as much time this year on a $150,000 budget that only had step increases as we did on some multi-million-dollar budgets. I think we should set agendas that are appropriate for the amount of time and the amount of influence that we can have on that budget, not just give everybody come in. And I feel like everybody comes in and they want to read through every line that's on there. We don't need that. If we have enough time to research it and go through it, they should come in and maybe they highlight 1 or 2 things and then they ask us if we have any questions. No questions, they can be done in 5 minutes. But it shouldn't be, I'm going to read every single line item in my budget because they feel like, I think people feel compelled to do that. So if we're going to talk about changing the date, I'd like to talk about changing the structure of those meetings as well and how we run them.
Well, that's a big piece of it, because if you're changing it, you get to take a fresh look at it. There are some departments that can be taken underneath the town manager, where he would introduce their budget. If the committee felt that they still wanted to see that particular department head, they would be allocated a very short period of time, talking 15 minutes rather than half an hour. And with the understanding that you're only there to talk about specific things that we should know about.
I think we should decide as a group what we want those meetings to be and then tell the budget, the
Well,
department
we-
heads,
we
this is
will,
what we
yeah.
expect. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, we need to schedule that meeting too.
I'm just,
So if I could just, so last year was my first exposure to the committee and how you guys did things. I took a lot out of that and things that I will do differently next year. Even if we maintain the same schedule, it wouldn't be the same on this side of the table. In part because I do think there's a lot of efficiencies we can work in to, as you say, I don't think it behooves anybody's time to discuss a budget if it's all step and contractual increases and they don't have a capital plan request. How much time do we need to have that? I mean, and we could identify all those departments that fall into those categories, and there's no reason the committee couldn't blow through every one of those departments in one night, even if you just kept it to nights, because, you know, like the veterans office, you know, the rec department, the planning office, you know, health and building, they generally don't have capital projects. They generally are just looking at salary increases, and most of those are contractual, and I think it would, if we did it all in one day, it would allow the committee to hone and spend the time on the things that I think you want to spend time on, which are public safety and the capital plan and DPW, the places where we're spending the most money,
And new hires,
and
and new positions.
and be able to talk. We can identify those very clearly. I tried to do it this year where I talked about them at the very beginning,
Right.
so that it was something. But I think I got a vision from you guys as to what you want to talk about, and so in our next kind of budget presentation, that's going to be what we're presenting. And we're not going to have the department heads coming and reading their things. They're going to bring forward the things that you guys seemed to be interested in last year, and that's how I think that'll be a more efficient way to run it, whether we change the dates or not.
Right. So
If we
we're
don't
creatures of
change-
habit, just like everybody else. We've been doing things the same way for the last 19 years since I came on, and nothing has changed. And I think this is a good time. We're having a new administration, and it's time to take a good look at the way this is being structured.
So how much time do we need to think about it, and when are we gonna make a decision? Because if we just walk out of here with no plan, I don't know what we're gonna end up doing. Like,
Well, I
do we
think
meet
this-
a week and say, what are we gonna do on, and how we're gonna structure the meetings, or is it a month from now? Like, what's the step? What's next?
Well, I think there's a couple of things to talk about. Technically speaking, the agenda and the owning of the meeting sits with the chair. So the chair's the one who's going to schedule them, that has the right over the agenda and the right over the scheduling of the meetings. And so that's something that, we could certainly have a conversation about, or we can poll the members. And I think further discussion doesn't necessarily have to necessarily be in a formal open meeting session.
Okay.
We're talking about process, not deliberations. So, talking about, I think we should do Saturdays, or I think, we need to structure it so that I'd like to see, new positions, changes that are, out of character, and
Capital.
anything that's contractual, don't bother talking about.
Well, you gotta talk about it, but,
You gotta talk
We don't
about
have-
everything.
but, that's part of the introduction.
Right,
and
right.
whatever.
And I also would like to point out that if we were to make this change, it doesn't mean that it's hard and fast that first year and will last forever. If we decide, you know what, we really do need, like, instead of 9 to 5 on one Saturday, can we do 2 Saturday mornings? That may be a thought.
Go back to nights.
I'm sorry?
Or we could end up going back to nights if we try it and don't like it. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But let's make a decision.
Well,
We're
I
gonna
guess-
try.
But
it.
it would be a work in progress. It wouldn't be hard and set from day one. Scheduling department meetings, that might get, it'll change every year, where we'll get the book, hopefully on Friday night, and all of a sudden realize there's a lot going on in this department, and we've only allocated less than a half an hour. Can we make a change in the schedule so that we feel comfortable when we meet with them in a week or two? So we should have that flexibility kind of built in.
And that's the kind of thing that I would anticipate next year discussing with the chair. To say, this department's got a few changes that we might not have realized. We had 2 positions in this department. I know you guys are going to want to talk about why. So we should have them in a larger slot than you might have thought last year when they were just a walk-in and I don't have anything to tell you. It's 5 minutes now. So if I was going to hire, I'm not saying this is going to, 3 more people for the Veterans Department. It's not going to be the same meeting
Sure.
that was last year.
Of course.
And so I could have that conversation with the chair leading up to the schedule to figure out what do we need to slot. Who really is a repeat from last year, wash, rinse, repeat, right, from
Right.
last year with no major changes and no staffing changes.
We could even just schedule a third Saturday for callbacks. And if we don't have any, we don't use it, but then it's on the calendar. And if we run out of time with Department X, we say, okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks at the callback meeting, and we have it already on the calendar.
Yeah, I think we're gonna need a tentative meeting date anyway in case of weather.
Yeah, we are doing this in February.
So, I like the idea of trying to figure out a better and more efficient way to do this. I think the town manager has presented 2 good options. One is, well, let's look at the departments, figure out which ones we can streamline, or maybe even say we don't need to invite this year. I mean, I don't want to make it, because I agree, people come, they want to present their department, they're proud of their department, and I appreciate that. And so we could either, let's try to streamline the nights and make the nights more efficient, maybe fewer nights, or do we make both changes at the same time and try to make some efficiencies and move to a couple of Saturdays? My concern with Saturdays is actually more about the fact that there aren't as many Saturdays as you should think, because there's 2 Saturdays in February that are tied up with February school vacation, beginning of February school vacation and the end, and that are right in the middle of that window that we like to meet, which is basically February. So there's really only a couple of Saturdays in February that are even open for this, for Saturday meeting. Because we like to be done by the first week in March, right?
Right.
Which is when we meet with the schools at night. So you'd maybe have the first Saturday in February and the last Saturday in February. So you got no room, really don't have a lot of room to move in February, because there's only 4 Saturdays, and 2 are usually chewed up with. And again, I don't know when the date of
Yeah.
presentation,
Oh,
so it's a little tight.
Yeah.
You still have most of January.
Well, we don't have January until he presents his budget.
For the last Monday in
Oh.
January.
Before Monday.
So it's
Well, I
tight,
mean,
so it's tight.
Unless we have people who are leaving for February vacation, there's no reason why we can't have it on one of those Saturdays. I mean, people that have young families or anyone, nobody else is traveling on February vacation.
I travel on February vacation because I watch the kids of 2 teachers. So,
Okay.
Yeah, and the
Well,
department
that's
heads
fair.
and other people that might be coming to present us, we have, we can't just say.
yeah, they may have kids.
they may have
Saturdays,
kids or
February
grandkids that they're
vacations are
traveling
tough. But I like the idea. I just think logistically it may be a little tough to pull out. I'm open to either. If you want to try to make both changes at the same time, let's do it. If you want to say, well, let's
Why
have
don't
the
we try
chair and the town manager figure out a more efficient way of scheduling people. I mean, you basically cut and paste the schedule we've used for decades this year that we've been using.
Why not do
for
a
decades.
hybrid next year? Do
Well-
the first Saturday in February, still do a bunch of Tuesday and Thursdays, and we see how it goes, and we figure out what we like better.
Do that too.
Because then
I'm
you,
okay with
then you don't worry about losing 2 Saturdays, you get, and honestly, on the night ones, can those be the lighter, smaller, easier ones? Because at the end of a long day of work and commute and everything else, and it's 8:45, you're right, you're not getting anybody's best, right? We're not getting your best, my best, whoever's sitting at that empty chair's best. But if it's the light stuff, and I would be thrilled for departments to come in that want to talk about like their successes versus going line by line in their budget, if there's nothing to talk about the budget, I'd love to hear what, and I don't want to pick on a department because I don't want anybody to be insulted, but whatever department that doesn't have a budget issue, just come in and tell us the 3 best things that happened this year and what you did for the town. That's a great story for us all to know. Like, yeah, hey, we paid for this and these projects happened, or these great events happened, or these. That to me would be much more interesting than having somebody read to me, I got 3 step raises and this budget's the same and this budget's the same. Like, it just would be more impactful, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, you
So-
guys figure it out and let us know what you want to do.
Did anybody else have any comments that they want to contribute? No? Okay. All right, so this is on hold. We will figure out a way to address it, what the next step is, and glad to get everybody talking about it and get your thoughts. So, do we have any other questions for Eric while we're here? Oh, okay, all right. The only, Did you want to ask a question, Brad, about audits?
Oh, yeah, well, I don't know. So there were.
While we have Stephanie here as
Sure.
well.
There were two, over the course of this past year, there've been some public comment questions and some questions that others have had that have prompted me to think about two things. One is the role of the Finance Committee with respect to the annual audit. In some communities, the annual audit is presented publicly to the Board of Selectmen by the auditor, with, here's the management letter, they did great, this is, whatever. And that has never been the case in Wilmington. But the audit is a very important tool and a very important document for the financial stability of a community, and it is essentially an independent reflection of the financial worthiness of the town, how it's managed financially, and an independent view of a lot of that, which is very similar to the oversight role that we as a finance committee has. So I was wondering, I wanted to just ask the question if there were other members who thought that maybe we should have either review the audit in a meeting. In some communities, the auditor actually comes in and makes a presentation to either the select board. I don't know about the FinCom. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, I do think there have been some legitimate questions asked about the town's investment strategy. We talk about free cash, we talk about capital stabilization. Without having to go into a lot of specifics, I would love to hear from the treasurer how are our funds invested? What do we, what's your investment strategy? And where are you, how are you, whatever those are important questions that I don't feel personally belong at a budget hearing when the treasurer's in talking about their step increase and the number of paper clips they need in their office, because that's an example of an office often that doesn't have a lot of things. And to ask them, so explain your investment strategy for capital, fixed income, and how do you do the checking? Do you have a rollover account? Do you have how are $100 million in taxes that you get from us invested and return, and how do you measure that? That's not the place for a question like that. But I do think that's a valid question that a finance committee might want to know from the treasurer and get an understanding as to provide, again, public visibility to the fact that these folks are good stewards of the monies, the hundreds of millions of dollars that they're responsible for. And so I don't think the question I wanted to pose to the committee or to the town manager was, do we think that's a role that the finance committee should be playing? And if so, how would we do it? Or if you don't, then I'd like to hear that too. Those are the questions I had, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to bring them up.
Of course. Marianne?
So I agree that information should be out there, but it's not the purview of this committee to even comment on what the town manager or the assessor or tax collector would invest in.
I can't, I'm having a hard time hearing.
It's not the purview of this committee to give them advice on what to invest in, but it is good to know that information. I just don't know if it should be in this kind of meeting with the finance committee. I think it might be something, that's total control by the town manager to invest in anything. He could maybe give us a brief overview. Maybe it's something that he could talk to the Board of Selectmen about going over, but I just don't think it's in the purview of this committee to go into big detail and bring in department heads to go into what the investments are. Because the town manager should be well aware of where the investments of the town are. And it's, you know, if he wants to do a report or whatever, not a bad idea, but I honestly think it would give the public the perception that we have some sort of control over the investments of the town. That's what I'm trying to avoid, you know?
But yet, I think, and very, very good point, and I think Brad has a very good point as well. So I think what we're hearing is that the Finance Committee should have more of an understanding, while we're acknowledging that we don't control what the assessor does. And you're responsible for what the assessor does. And
It's mostly the treasurer.
the treasurer,
assessor.
excuse me, I
I know
misused
what
that title. It's his fault. So I agree that, you know, sharing more of that information is a good thing. I think that can be done. I don't think there's a problem with doing it in a regular finance meeting. We've done it in the past, very briefly, and just explained. I think there are certain limitations on what you can do
Statutory limitations
with
on what
money.
you do with municipal funds.
So they're working with a limited landscape anyway. As far as the audit, I think I also agree with you that that's an excellent point. I think once, a number of years ago, we had requested the audit to be sent to the Finance Committee, and I would like to request it again. Stephanie wants to say
Sorry
something.
to interrupt, but I want to let you know the FY24 audit is out on the financial page with all of our financial information for FY24. I can go back through and enter all the other ones before my time, but I can tell you the one that I completed in January is up there for review.
Oh, okay,
To
it's
be
on the
fully
website.
Transparent to the public.
Okay.
As well as your committee.
Would that be satisfactory to you, to take a
Well,
look at it there?
I mean, I don't have an agenda here, I wanted to bring up two topics that I thought might add to the overall visibility of the public, that these folks know what they're doing, and you know, sometimes you get questions that call that expertise into question. We get questions that call that expertise into question. One of which is, you know, is about how our monies are invested. I don't think that's I think that's a reasonable question for somebody to ask. And the audit is something, thank you for putting that online. I wasn't aware of it. I know the annual reports online when that's done, but I just think I wanted to bring those up and see if there was any interest. If there isn't, there isn't. That's fine. I just think that, you know, we are talking about hundreds of millions of dollars here, and you know, a little bit of public scrutiny as to how those funds are invested and maintained, I don't think is a bad thing. And again, it's not I'm not a professional town treasurer, but nor am I a police chief, and I'm being called on to ask to give advice to town meeting on whether or not we should have 2 more police officers, you know. So I just think I think it's important to consider, and whether or not that's something we think would add to the visibility of how our funds are being managed.
So I think, if I might,
Please.
I think as to the question of the audit, I think it makes perfect sense for the members of the Finance Committee to take a look at that audit, and if you feel like you have questions about it or concerns, feel free to reach out directly to myself or Stephanie. I mean, I think that's absolutely, and if it rises to the level of something that the Finance Committee feels like they want to have a meeting about. It's not certainly not completely out of the ordinary with respect to municipal finance. Generally speaking, in my experience, the select boards that do receive audit reports are more likely to have a town administrator form of government, where the select board is the actual chief executive officer. Unlike here, where it's a town manager form of government, but that audit should be something that I think the members of the board should feel free to review, and if you have questions, let us know. With respect to investment strategies, I certainly don't have a problem submitting a report, a memo that just says this is kind of how we do it, and I can give that, send that to Tommy, who can send it out to the committee, and if that spurs questions that you want to bring to the chair and say, hey, I think we ought to ask some more questions about this. I certainly don't think there's any reason for lack of transparency on that sort of stuff. I don't. I think it will be way less exciting than people think.
I
want it to be
Depends what
boring.
field you're in.
It's gonna be super well. That's fair.
I'd be really excited.
Terrific.
Again, it's
super
not-
super boring.
Yeah, my purpose is not to,
Oh no, I
Not
know.
to
not to
Suggestive
generate
change,
excitement,
just
it's to
to
do
have
the
knowledge.
opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will be. But I think
Perfect.
doing that is.
That's a great suggestion. Thank
Through you,
No
Mr. Slagle, could I ask Stephanie if she could email the audit report to the Finance Committee? Just to make it a little bit easier, it will be in your inbox,
Yep,
and
the
you
link.
Thank
That'd
you.
be great.
take a look at it. And then if ongoing, we could follow that same procedure when you receive the audit results, if you could just send it out to us.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I'm more
great.
than happy to answer any questions.
Great.
Thank you.
And if anyone does have questions, obviously, you can email the town manager or any of the department heads, but make sure you CC the chair of the Finance Committee, whoever that may be.
And if you email a department head, you should CC the town manager.
Exactly, yes, I'm sorry, that's what I meant to
Just so I
say.
know what's
Yep.
Going
Yeah.
on.
going on.
Yeah. Okay. Is that it? Do we have any other questions? We've covered a lot tonight, so,
It's finished.
yeah. All right. Well, I think we're good. Thank you
You
so
think you're
much to all of you
Done with us?
for
So
for being
9 o'clock.
here.
Thank you.
It's an hour earlier than last night, and in a much more comfortable
I
room.
know.
Yeah.
Just
Much more.
We don't,
Just
we don't,
marginally.
we don't get to go? We're not done?
do a reorg minutes.
I'm gonna grab some water.
I swear to God.
Do you want a water bottle? It's cold.
I've got ice in here, so thank you, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric. Go home. Go home.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Dennis.
It was interesting. It was at the edge of my seat.
I'm just thinking
I didn't want to drive out to eat.
Oh, that's right, that's gonna be brutal when we get out of here.
Yeah. Just walk into a wall.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
It's awful.
Do we?
You went to get water. It's all right. Should be at the...
All right, Teresa, what do we have left?
We have to wait for Chris.
We just have to reorganize, and then, I think year-end discussion, we've pretty much, as far as I'm aware, have covered that. If anybody has questions to add to that, we can do that as well. And we have to do the minutes. Tommy, wake up.
Oh, it's been such a long, hot day in here.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not you guys.
We'll make this as quick as we can. Okay. Why don't we just do the minutes now? So it's just a little bit quicker. We have minutes of February 27th, March 18th, and May 3rd.
Can we motion them all at once?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Why be efficient?
Motion to accept the minutes from February 27th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do I have a vote? February 27th? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Motion to accept the minutes on May 3rd.
Second.
We have a second. Do we have, okay. Vote. I'm tired. It's unanimous. And
The one we're missing is
March
March 18th.
18th.
So moved. Acceptance is
Second.
printed.
we have a motion, we have a second. We have a vote, please, on March 18th, and that also is unanimous.
That was pretty efficient, actually. Nice work. Way to go, team.
Okay, so now we get to the reorganization of the Finance Committee that we do every year. We have 3 positions, chairman, vice chair, and secretary.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Teresa Maganelli as the chair.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? We'll make it unanimous. Thank you very much. I would motion to nominate Mary Ann Galezzo as vice chair.
Second.
That's all right, I was writing.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. And we have secretary.
I'd like to nominate Andy Levine as secretary.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? I'm here to help.
Thank you so much. It's unanimous, except Joe?
I raised my hand.
He had his hand up 30 seconds ago. It's gonna be
Oh, you mean when I was zoning out? Are you sure about that vote, the first one?
Yes, we got it on film. You're fine.
Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you all very much. It was a
Thank you.
very good meeting. We got a lot done, a lot of good conversation. Tommy, thank you so much. I know there's a lot of back and forth trying to get this together. You're tremendous as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thanks, Tommy.
And thank you, WCTV.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.